Welcome inside the fish tank, everybody. My name is Andrew Ferrator, and I'm joined by Nick Vasella. Unfortunately, today, Thomas Walsh will not be able to join us, but for now, it's just me and Nick. So, how are you doing today?
Well, in fantasy-wise, I'm not doing too well. My team stinks. I'm 1-4. Speaking of the aforementioned Thomas Walsh, I lost this week to his pathetic, incompetent, dopey, moronic, buffoon, gutless team, which did not make me happy this week. So I'm not doing good in that regard.
Yeah, I mean, this has just been a tough season for some people with all these injuries, and some people, drafted some players and aren't happy with them, and it's just tough because the people like me and you who paid so much attention in the off season, and still pay more attention than everyone else, are not performing as well as people who don't even know what's going on in the NFL. It's kind of annoying.
But that aspect is very frustrating. I mean, putting in the work in the off season and seeing it not pay off, and seeing people that don't even know when kickoff starts on Sundays have one of the best teams in the league. It's very frustrating. But now, wait a second. All right, gather around the iPhone, gather around the computer, gather around the iPad or the TV. Gather around, ladies and gentlemen.
Oh
I'm going to
boy,
tell you a little story.
this is gonna be interesting.
I'm going to tell you a little story about what happened last week. It's just something I got to get off my chest. I would have mentioned it. I would have mentioned it on the last podcast, but obviously I was absent due to a personal matter. Thanks again, Vincent Gagliardo, for filling in.
Great
Tremendous job. All right, here goes. So in week 4 of last week, I entered Monday Night Football down by 15.8 points with Tyreek Hill to go up against Justin Stahl in our Dynasty League. Now, the Chiefs and Patriot game got moved to Monday night because they had a positive test of Newton, and later it was Gilmore who got tested positive. So in that game, Tyreek Hill has 4 catches, 64 yards, and 1 touchdown, which equates to 16.4 fantasy points, which would, in theory, in a normal league, on a competent site, give me the victory for that week. But no, this is Sleeper. This is the Sleeper app, and it is one of the worst fantasy websites you can be on because Tyreek Hill is the speedster, fastest guy in the NFL. He's returning punts for the Chiefs. And on one of the punts that he's receiving, it was down one of the sidelines. He was, trying to just like make fun a little bit or whatever. He was leaning over the out of bounds mark and trying to catch it, almost like it was a sideline catch, but he drops it and it goes out of bounds. Now, Sleeper calls this a fumble for -1, which doesn't give me the lead, and I lose by 0.4 points. That's 0.04 points. That's ridiculous. I mean, come on, man. I mean, what is that? There was no change in possession. It wasn't a negative play for his team. How is that -1? That's not a fumble. The ball went off his hands and out of bounds. And now in a normal league of -2, you get -2 for fumbling away the football. There is no change in possession on this play. That's ridiculous. I mean, geez. And it's not only me out there. There are people on Twitter that are outraged over this because it costs people their losses like me. This is one of the worst beats in fantasy football history. And there's only one person and one site to blame, and it's Sleeper. You know what? After this year, I am never, ever playing on this moronic site again. This is ridiculous. That's a gutless call by Sleeper. I'm going to tell everybody I know to not play on Sleeper ever again. ESPN, Yahoo, CBS, these are where everyone should be playing at. And you know what? Sleeper is, oh boy. I don't know. Anybody in their right mind, if you are playing on Sleeper moving forward, you need your head examined because this is one of the worst sites that's out there. All right. Anyway, boy. All right.
Thank you for that beautiful story, Fish. That even made me frustrating, and I was frustrated, and I wasn't even the one who lost by 0.04 because of that. But while we're in the mood of ripping people, I guess, I'll take this opportunity to rip New Orleans Saints receiver Michael Thomas. Now, this is a guy who I foolishly decided to trade for in what might go down as one of the worst trades in fantasy football history, but I won't even say that. This guy got injured in week 1 on a useless play. The game was already over. He's out week 2. He's out week 3. He's out week 4. And week 5, on Friday, the last practice of the week, this clown decides when he's finally healthy and ready to come back and play, he decides to punch his teammate in the face. And this is just so frustrating for fantasy managers who have Michael Thomas on their team, who spent a first-round pick on this guy, expecting him to be the number 1 wide receiver on the year. And he's played 1 game, and he's finally ready to come back and play. And he does this. It's just so frustrating. And he deserves to be benched for that. And it just doesn't make any sense.
As far as I'm concerned, Michael Thomas has done 0 for your team this year so far. Because, I mean, basically in week 1, he had 3 catches for 17 yards or 4 for 17. That's next to nothing. And he hasn't played a game since. So pretty much for the first 5 weeks, fantasy managers Michael Thomas was unusable. So that is Michael Thomas is just such a diva. I mean, you look at him on Twitter, you look at him, just his actions on the field. He's complaining every second he gets the chance to. I mean, Michael Thomas needs a reality check, and he needs to realize that he's just one piece on a team that has a chance to go to the Super Bowl this year. So that's unbelievable.
Yeah.
And I guess, we're in the mood of ripping. So let me get the last. Let me make this round 3 for ripping. This week I played Thomas Walsh, whose team is garbage. I mean, he had Aaron Rodgers. Well, I don't really consider that a loss because he had Watson, who's pretty good, but he had Kenny Galladay on bye. He's got McCaffrey out for the year, and Sutton, who is all right.
No,
he's out for the
year.
Sutton's out for the year too.
McCaffrey's out for the year.
McCaffrey's out he was out for this week, but so he was out without those guys, and he also had Patriots like Edelman and White who couldn't play because the game got canceled with them in Denver. So he was left to start guys like Brian Hill and Hill and Randall Cobb, who I mean did what they could for him, and my team was a disgrace also. But Thomas Walsh, after the game, he has the audacity to say that good fantasy managers find a way. A quote, good fantasy managers find a way to win. Well, guess what, Thomas? Everybody on your bench did not play a game, so therefore your lineup was set by default. You did not have one action. You did not have one decision to make. So how is that how is that good on you? Not one player on his bench played. They were either on bye, hurt, and were ruled out. He did not have one player on his bench, so his lineup was set for him. He had no effect in the outcome. The only reason he won is because my pathetic team didn't play well. That's not good. That's not a good play by Thomas. And also, he's the luckiest player I've ever seen in my life. He catches at least 5 breaks every year, more than anybody else. He gets the number 1 pick every year. I mean, it's absurd. It's absurd to see that Thomas takes his victory laps after just gutless statements.
Yeah, for some people who aren't aware, we started a Dynasty League this year, as well as our normal redraft league. And we picked the order by hand in both leagues. And this year, Thomas Walsh got picked as the number 1 overall pick for both leagues. That is just absurd.
I mean, and also before the season, when we're coming on to do this podcast, we did it for league. He's like, I haven't done a mock draft in 3 months, and it's like a day before the draft. I mean, this is you know what, Thomas Walsh, you are a gutless puke.
Wow, deep words from Nick Fasella at 6:54 p.m. But
all right,
moving on to our podcast, where this is why you tuned in, for the information, not I guess for the ripping too, but mostly for the information. So we're gonna have 2 segments for you guys today. First one is going to be week 5 winners and losers. And our second one is going to be a surprise segment that I'm sure many of you will enjoy.
Yep. And without further ado, we move into our weekly winners and losers of the week. Andrew, give us your first winner.
All right, my first winner. He played last night. It's Justin Jackson, running back of the Los Angeles Chargers. And going into this game, there was a little uncertainty about who would be the lead back, if it was going to be the rookie Joshua Kelly or if it was going to be Justin Jackson. And after this game, it's very clear that the lead back will be Justin Jackson. I mean, he played on over 50% of the snaps compared to Kelly's 35%. He had 15 carries, 5 catches on 6 targets, compared to Kelly's 11 carries and 1 catch. And if you have him on your team, this was very good sign for you, as you just found yourself a weekly starter on the waiver wire. So I think as long as Austin Eckler's out, Justin Jackson is a flex play at minimum.
Absolutely. Justin Jackson, he just looked better. He looked better running the ball, and bet he's the better receiver compared to Josh Kelly. And I agree with that. He's a flex moving forward as long as Eckler's out. All right, my first winner is Marquise Hollywood Brown. And finally, this was the coming out game for Hollywood. 6 catches, 77 yards, 1 touchdown, and he also had a rush for a yard. But it's been the production that fantasy managers have hopes that Hollywood Brown could have on a more consistent basis. And it looks good that Lamar Jackson was finally looking Hollywood's way, and he connected with Hollywood on a short 2-yard touchdown. I think Lamar and the Ravens, they're going to have to improve on this passing game, because obviously we know in the playoffs they can't get by with just running the ball with that 3-man backfield and just Lamar running. They have to improve this passing game. And I think they're going to work on that in weeks to come. And it showed in this game. And I think Hollywood Brown's going to be a big part of that passing offense moving forward.
Yeah, there was a lot of hype around this guy leading up to the season, and I wasn't too sold on it because he was very, very inconsistent last year, and I needed to see him produce on a consistent basis before I felt comfortable plugging him into my lineup. But this is, like you said, this is the week fantasy managers were hoping for in him. He obviously scored a touchdown, which is huge. I believe that's his first one of the year or second?
Yeah, first
First
of
one
the
of the year.
year.
Wow, so good sign for Hollywood Brown owners. My second winner of the week is going to be Devonta Freeman, former Atlanta Falcon running back, who is now in the New York Football Giants. And I think this guy is going to get more and more involved in this offense as the season goes on. He's obviously got a nice chip on his shoulder, as no team wanted to pay him the money he wanted. And I think he's trying to earn that money for next year, as he only signed the 1-year deal this year. He had 20 total opportunities, so that's carries plus targets. And then compared to Deion Lewis and Wayne Gallman, the other 2 backs in the Giants backfield, he clearly outtouched them. He's clearly the one going forward. And like I said, his touches are probably going to go up as the season goes on.
Absolutely. Devonta Freeman looked probably the best he's looked in 2 years since his last year being with the Falcons. And I agree. I expect him to be the lead back moving forward in the Giant offense, and similar production from what he had last game. My second winner is wide receiver of the Texans, Brandon Cooks. He has been pretty disappointing so far earlier in the year. His first 4 weeks, I expected this guy. I wasn't too sold on Will Fuller as the number 1 just based on his lack of health. So I kind of thought Brandon Cooks would come into the year being the number 1 receiver. And if he has more games like this one, then that'll definitely come to fruition. 8 catches, 161 yards, and a touchdown. And this Houston Texan team and offense just looks so much better now that the cancer Bill O'Brien is out of that organization. Who would ever make that guy general manager and head coach of the team? So now that Bill O'Brien's gone, I expect the offense to be much better. And everyone says, well, Russell Wilson, we're going to let Russ cook now this year. They're going to let Dalvin cook. They're going to let all these quarterbacks cook. Well, guess what? Now that Bill O'Brien's gone, it's time for Deshaun to cook. And I expect Brandon Cooks to be a pretty solid receiver moving forward.
Yeah, I like many people, including yourself, thought Brandon Cooks was going to be the one on this offense. He's going to outplay Will Fuller, but that hasn't looked like the case throughout the first couple of weeks, but certainly did last week. And I'm not going to take credit for the statement. The credit goes to Jason Moore of the Fantasy Footballers. But I don't know why Bill O'Brien is getting so much slack. He lost his best receiver. What else do you want him to do on offense?
You mean Deshaun Watson?
He lost his best receiver,
Yeah,
DeAndre Hopkins.
that's a clown trade. I mean, this guy, Bill O'Brien's a cancer. He's a cancer, and the Texans are in hell pretty much. They're a terrible. They were a bad team this year. They don't have any first round picks because they traded them to the Dolphins, and they've got the least amount of cap space. Yikes! If you're a Texans fan. All right, my third winner is Myles Gaskin of the Miami Dolphins. And Gaskin, to me, before the game even started, I think Gaskin would have been a winner for this week, just based on the fact that Jordan Howard, the vulture, the goal line back, was a healthy scratch for this week's game. Gaskin went on to have 16 carries, 57 yards, a goal line touchdown, and 5 catches for 34 yards. So Gaskin's going to be one of these guys that I think should be a starter moving forward. I mean, he is clearly the lead guy in this offense. There's nobody to challenge him. Matt Breida will be the change of pace back, but this is Gaskin's backfield. And in this offense, he's going to, this year's been pretty good for 5 catches a game. And if he scores and gets the amount of carries he's been getting, that's just a great recipe for fantasy success.
Yeah, I actually was not starting him this week, and before the game started, I got 0 alerts that Jordan Howard was going to be a healthy scratch. And if I knew that, I would have started him, but that wasn't the case. So he was on my bench and put up 20 points. That was pretty frustrating. But anyway, my final winner of the week is Allen Robinson, wide receiver of the Chicago Bears. And I don't know why Nick is shaking his head, because he before the season started, he did not like this guy at all. He did not think he could perform in this offense. But besides the Arizona Cardinals, I think this is the most clear wide receiver 1 on any team, and it's not even close. He has 26 targets in the last 2 games. He's clearly Nick Foles' favorite target. And I mean, he gets Carolina Panthers this week. Obviously, that's a favorable matchup. But I don't know how you could doubt this guy. I mean, he's an elite receiver in the NFL. I don't care what you say. He is an elite receiver. And I think he's a wide receiver 1 moving forward.
I don't know. Allen Robinson is.
Hold on.
I mean,
what more does he have to show you? I mean,
yeah. You know what? You know when I get excited about Allen Robinson is when he wears a different uniform, because he's a Bear, and that just doesn't seem sustainable for whatever reason. I mean, Nick Foles is so bad. Foles is so bad.
This guy thinks that Mitchell Trubisky is better than Nick Foles, which is
which he is.
Is far from the truth.
Trubisky actually has some potential, and Trubisky actually has some raw talent, but Nick Foles is garbage.
It doesn't matter if he's garbage.
Terrible.
He's getting the job done. They came back down 20 points to the Atlanta Falcons as soon as Trubisky got benched. Do you think that's coincidence?
The Bears were 3-0 with Trubisky.
Oh, he got benched in the last game.
Yeah, Trubisky was doing a fine job. I didn't see I think they were done with Trubisky because of what he did last year, but so they were just waiting for the slightest moment where Trubisky looked really bad to yank him. But I mean, Nick Foles is garbage. I mean, he doesn't throw the ball downfield at all. You know what? Actually, it is good for Allen Robinson, because Allen Robinson just runs 5 yards down the field. He turns, and Nick Foles is going to throw him the ball. So maybe Nick Foles' incompetence can help Allen Robinson for fantasy.
Let me just ask you one more question. Who won the Super Bowl a couple years ago?
The Philadelphia Eagles.
Who's their quarterback?
I assume that's what you're talking about. The
Yeah, that's
Eagles.
what I'm talking about. Who's their quarterback?
Foles.
Nick
Foles
Foles?
when he was an Eagle years ago, 3 years ago.
So you're telling me a Super Bowl champion isn't better than one of the biggest busts of the last of recent history.
Eli Manning's a two-time Super Bowl MVP, and was he ever was he ever a top 20 fantasy quarterback?
You don't need to be a top 20 fantasy quarterback to be better than Mitchell Trubisky. All you need to do is to be able to throw the ball. And there you go. He's better than Mitch Trubisky.
All right. Trubisky and Foles. We'll see how that plays out moving forward. All right, moving on to our Week 5 losers. I'll start it off. Juju Smith-Schuster. He is a loser. And he's been putting up some really questionable numbers lately. If you think this guy is still number one receiver, he's not. I love Juju in the offseason. I've been a Juju lover for the past 2 years, and boy, have I been wrong. I mean, Big Ben. One reason I thought Juju was going to be a stud in fantasy is because I thought he was going to soak up all the targets in the Pittsburgh offense, but that has just not been the case. In his last 2 games, he's had 5 targets in each of them, and in this game, he had 4 for 28. And that's just not going to get it done. And especially with the emergence of Chase Claypool, I don't really know how Juju improves moving forward, because Claypool's not going anywhere, and Deontay Johnson, he's out. I know he got hurt last game, but he's going to be back, and they still got Washington. They got the tight ends. Roethlisberger loves throwing to Connor. I don't know. I don't see the ups. I don't think there's upside the rest of the year with Juju Smith-Schuster.
Yeah.
And to be honest, it wouldn't really surprise me if Chase Claypool, overtook Juju as the number one receiver by the end of the year. That's how concerned I am about him.
Yeah, a couple of shows ago, we did a buy or sell about Juju, and I want to change my opinion right now. This is definitely very concerning as for a Juju Smith-Schuster owner. I mean, I think Claypool and Deontay Johnson, if he plays, are going to get more targets than Juju, and not looking too good for him. But my first loser of the week is going to be Jerick McKinnon, who has looked great through the first 4 weeks, but last week is a different story. Raheem Mostert obviously missed the last 2 games, and then he came back today or Sunday, and he got all of the rushing work. Jerick McKinnon had 0 carries in this game, and he only played 25% of the snaps. And you would think that he would get at least some of the work because he looked so good when Mostert wasn't there. But I mean, it just did not look good, and I don't think you can even play him if Mostert is healthy. So obviously this is very concerning, and only playing 25% of the snaps, you don't like to see that, and it's just not a good situation.
Yeah, this whole offense was, in a word, a yikes. Jerick McKinnon is not startable, and he might become droppable in the near future with Tevin Coleman coming back too.
Oh yeah,
Coleman
didn't even play.
Speaking of the 49ers, I'll just get it in there. Deebo Samuel is a loser this week. 2 catches for 17 yards, and I think it goes for any San Francisco pass catcher that they're a loser this week, just because the quarterbacks are so bad. I mean, George Kittle was a big part of the outcome of my fantasy matchup, so I was tuned into that game for quite a bit every time the 49ers had the ball, and I was stunned at how bad Garoppolo looked and how poor the throws were that he was making. And Beathard came in, and he didn't do much better. It's just very concerning for the passing options in this offense. And with the emergence of Brandon Ayuk, I don't see how Deebo Samuel can be a starter the rest of the year, or at least for the foreseeable future.
Yeah, Jimmy Garoppolo's passer rating in the first half was a measly 15. That is
Oh,
that that's
garbage.
terrible. And the this I mean he looked terrible too. He was throwing some very questionable passes, and he made his team pay for that. And the Dolphins crushed the 49ers. They look like they made the Super Bowl last year, not the 49ers.
Yep. Yep. Jimmy Garoppolo and the Niner offense, they made the Miami defense, they made the Dolphin defense look like, the Patriots last year or something. Very, very alarming for San
Yes.
Francisco 49ers.
Sticking with pass catchers, I'm going with that of Amari Cooper, CeeDee Lamb, and Michael Gallup, all of the Dallas Cowboys pass catchers. Obviously, the tragic news, Dak Prescott is out for the year. The injury looks very gruesome. I do not recommend you watch that. His ankle was not pointed the right way. But this was an offense that was averaging over 400 passing yards a game until Dak Prescott got hurt. And I'm not so sure Andy Dalton will be able to sustain that. I'm actually sure he won't be able to sustain that. Now, don't get me wrong, he probably is one of the best backups in the league, but he's not gonna be able to get it done like Dak did. And this offense as a whole is probably gonna take a step back. And one more thing for you Dallas Cowboys play callers, why don't you throw the ball to Michael Gallup more? I mean, he only had 4 targets last game, but you could see what he did on the last drive. He won you the game with those 2 incredible catches. I just don't understand why they don't throw to him more.
Yeah, I'll tell you why they don't throw it to him, because he's the number 3 receiver on that team. CeeDee Lamb and Amari Cooper are just better. Michael Gallup doesn't get any looks his way, and it's because he's not open. Yeah, he could make a spectacular catch, but Lamb and Cooper are just better options. And I don't know if I'm as concerned as with this offense as you are. I don't know. I think Dalton's the best backup in the league, and I think he can still get the job done. And this Cowboy defense is still amongst the worst in the league. So I think they're going to still have to throw. And I think Dalton can get the ball to them. Now, here's an interesting question. If you had to rank the 3 receivers moving forward for the Cowboys, how would you rank them?
Cooper, actually no. Lamb, Cooper, skip a few, Gallup, all the way at the
Yeah.
bottom.
Yep, that's exactly. I was going to expect that you say Cooper and maybe Lamb and Gallup tied for second, but yeah, I agree with that. Lamb is the number 1 receiver in this offense, at least I think. And
Yeah.
he's going to be a stud moving forward. All right, moving to my final loser of the week, and it goes without saying, or you might not even know that he's played the last 2 games because he's been absent, and that is Zach Ertz, tight end of the Philadelphia Eagles. He had a very alarming performance of 1 catch for 6 yards, and that is off the heels of his, I think, 4 catch for 9 yards performance last week on Sunday Night Football against the Niners. 15 yards on 6 catches. Those are very alarming numbers, and I think we can label Zach Ertz officially right now as a bust for the year. I don't see it getting any better with Zach Ertz the rest of the year. He is a bust, and I don't think I will ever take him in fantasy again, just due to his age and just he doesn't look that great, and there's uncertainty with where he will be next year.
And this is not an offense that you're like, oh my God, there's so many weapons to throw to. I don't know if he's going to be able to get enough targets. This is an offense where Travis Fulgham is getting 10 receptions. Travis Fulgham. I bet no one ever heard of that guy before this week. And it's just, you can't play him anymore. You can't play him.
Very alarming.
Even
Very
with Dallas
alarming.
Goedert out, it's just terrible. But my final loser of the week is going to be Terry McLaurin of the Washington football team. And Terry McLaurin, he's one of the most exciting players to watch in all of football. He just looks great out there. But if you don't have a quarterback that can throw you the ball consistently, then there's no point if you're that talented. And you could say that Dwayne Haskins wasn't good, but he certainly did not look as bad as Alex Smith did. And don't get me wrong, it's a great story Alex Smith has coming back after getting injured a couple of years ago. But every play, I mean, it was just check down. And I don't know if he'll be able to, keep McLaurin as involved in the offense as managers would hope, as Terry McLaurin obviously has a big playability. And if Alex Smith can't throw down the field, then how is he going to show that off? So it's just a little concerning with McLaurin and Alex Smith.
All right, I need to say something for a second. I mean, there. All right. Alex Smith, he got in the game when Kyle Allen left, and his stats were he had 9 completions, 52.94 completion percentage, no touchdowns, no picks, 37 yards, and he had a rush for 1 yard and a fumble. Yikes. I'm trying to find his rating. His rating was 58.7. And people after the game, and as you said, it's a great story. People after the game are saying, Alex Smith, comeback player of the year. Well, how about Ben Roethlisberger or Cam Newton? These guys were out last year, and they're actually starters for their own team. Ben Roethlisberger has looked phenomenal this year so far, and he's led the Steelers. The Steelers are 4-0 and first place in the AFC North. Cam Newton has looked great he's tremendous with the Patriots. How is Alex Smith going to be the comeback player of the year? He's terrible.
People are just engulfed in the story, Fish. People care more about the story. They want to zone out what's happening on the football field. They don't care about that.
Oh, boy. All right. We are now going to move into our long-anticipated segment. It's been in the works for quite some time right now, and it is called...
Thank you, Nicholas Mamay, for that. Our close friend, fellow league member. It is called He's a Monster, as that is his coined statement. So, new segment. You want to start us off?
I'll start us off, and when you play this next one, just play it a little louder. We want our audience to fully hear this incredible statement of "He is a monster" that Nicholas Mamay has coined. Because whenever somebody on his team does well, he's a monster. All right, my monster of the week, DK Metcalf. He's a DK Metcalf, the wide receiver, Seattle Seahawks, 6 catches, 93 yards, 2 touchdowns on 11 targets. In the Seahawks come from behind win on Sunday Night Football. And when you look at DK Metcalf, what is there not to like? Physically, he is the perfect wide receiver. If you had to create a wide receiver for your team, this is the guy you would want on your team. He's young, he's strong, he's tall, he's super fast. He's got a great quarterback throwing to him in Russell Wilson, who has plenty of years down the line. Seattle defense is still terrible, so the Seahawks have no choice but to let Russ cook and let that offense that offense is going to have to throw a lot. Metcalf, I think, unquestionably right now is the number 1 receiver on the Seahawks. There's really no debate. I mean, he's just had constant production. He just looks better than Lockett. Wilson's looking Metcalf's way more. Metcalf is the go-to guy in this offense. When Russell Wilson made a pretty encouraging comment, if you're like me and have expectations for DK Metcalf moving forward, Russell Wilson said, for years to come, he wants to be the Joe Montana to Metcalf's Jerry Rice, and that is what you want to see, and that wouldn't hurt if Wilson was Montana and Metcalf was Rice. And Metcalf is just a superstar. He's currently, I think, the fourth ranked receiver for the year so far, and moving down the line. Next year, I will be targeting this guy in round 2. Round 2 is where DK Metcalf will get taken next year, and I just can't wait.
Yeah, I think there's more than an argument for this guy as the dynasty wide receiver 1 moving forward. I mean, he's, like you said, he's young, and he's what you want in a receiver. I mean, it's just perfect, and he's one of the best quarterbacks in the league. Throwing to him.
The perfect situation is right here. This is it.
Let me just read you some of the names that were drafted in front of him. Andy Isabella, Paris Campbell, and JJ Arcega-Whiteside. Just 3 of the
Wow.
names that were taken ahead of him. And that, I just don't see how that's possible. Obviously, he was taken at the end of the second round, so every team passed on him, but what a pick that was. Okay, my monster of the week is going to be, we talked about him a little earlier, it's Chase Claypool.
He's a monster!
Chase Claypool, I mean, he was all over the headlines. 42 fantasy points. Count them, 4 touchdowns in this game. And, I mean, what else is there to say? 7 receptions on 11 targets for 110 yards, as well as the rushing touchdown. And, I mean, I think this guy is going to be he's a future star. And in this offense, with Ben Roethlisberger throwing to him, as long as he's throwing to him, I think he can easily provide for fantasy football. And I think he can eventually overtake, if he hasn't already, even though it's only been one game, he can eventually overtake Juju and Deontay Johnson as the one on this team. Kind of, as a new Antonio Brown, new and improved Antonio Brown. And this guy's got a really bright future ahead of him.
Yep, 11 targets. He had 10 touches, including 4 touchdowns, as you said. I mean, just a monster game, as we would say. And I'm just going to ask you this question: if you in Dynasty moving forward, and obviously it's a tricky question because Juju is still so young. I think Juju is like 23 or 24.
Oh, yeah.
But who would you rather have in Dynasty moving forward, just after this game from Claypool? Chase Claypool or Juju?
That is a very tough question. I think I would still rather have Juju, although I don't really like that too much. I mean, if we see another good game like this from Claypool, then that answer could easily change. But I think Juju he's still, like you said, he's still very young, and he still has a lot of talent. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think I agree. I think for now, I'm still going to play it safe with Juju, but that is obviously subject to change as Claypool had a monster game.
Thank you for tuning into this week's segment of
He's a monster!
And I believe that will be it for the podcast. Any last words?
It was a great podcast today. Obviously, we hope to have Thomas Walsh, our co-host, back. We will have more coming up on that in days to come. But it was a great podcast today, and I look forward to doing more.
Yep. Enjoy the Tuesday night football game between the Titans and the Bills.